thank you for joining us on our Think Active podcast. The focus of the podcast that we're doing is about return to play, and we're joined by Kerry Luckett and Scott Anglis from Khalsa Leamington Hockey Club. Kerry and Scott, thank you. And if I just ask you just to introduce yourself and your role within the club, just for people who are listening.
Yeah, Kerry Luckett. My role within Khalsa Leamington is chair and at present acting treasurer.
Thank you. Busy job. Scott, yourself? Thanks for joining us, mobile.
More than welcome. My name's Scott. I'm the men's club captain and also the ladies' second 11 coach.
Busy too, so two busy people. Kerry, perhaps you can just give us a bit of a sort of a quick whistle-stop background to the club, because it's not sort of, it's had a bit of a journey over sort of the recent couple of years that might be quite different to a lot of other clubs, and that also might make how you've navigated your way through these 3 lockdowns. It might inform some of that. So what's gone on with KL to take it to where it is today?
So prior to 2019, the 2 clubs were separate. Khalsa was a men's team that were playing in National League with three teams in total. Leamington was predominantly a massive ladies section with 5 teams running and 3 men's teams. The 2 clubs decided to merge together in 2019. So when we hit lockdown, it was our first season of being a fully merged club. We have 250 adult members and approximately 300 plus junior members that run 6 ladies teams, 6 men's teams, over 35s ladies, over 40s men's, over 50s men's, and then the junior section, which plays Badgers hockey, which is based around the younger members, and then they also have an under 18s, under 16s and under 14 squads.
Quite a big club then.
Yeah, one of the biggest in the area.
Okay, yeah. And so if I just sort of bring Scott in then. So Scott, what sort of immediate impact did sort of the lockdowns have on sort of the club and the club activity, apart from the obvious of no hockey?
Yeah, so the obvious one is obviously nowhere to get out, but a lot of people just missed having the physical activity, just to keep their physical and mental health in good check. They miss the camaraderie, the team ethic of being with your friends, seeing everyone on a weekly basis, the competition aspects. Certainly there's a lot of teams that were striving for promotion or to do better than they ever have in their respective teams, and also their own personal development. But obviously it all came to a grinding halt, but it's not deterred people. There's certainly been a lot of activity away from the pitch to ensure that they are still remaining fit, still remaining healthy, and they're also finding new ways to interact with each other with the loss of not seeing everyone face to face.
It does seem, doesn't it, that hockey being one of the examples where the sport stepped up to support itself and each other instead of leaving people sort of isolated.
Absolutely, yeah. I'll say we've done that through not just the normal WhatsApp groups, but doing activities via Zoom and Teams, etc. Lots of social media activity, and lots of quirky things. Let's make sure everyone's okay, but with sending little gifts secretly, almost like a secret Santa, but within teams within the club, and just make sure everyone still remains involved and no one's left out whilst we can't see face to face.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. And Kerry, with the more of the club, the operational stuff, what sort of immediate impact did you sort of see when lockdown hit? So
for us financially, it was crippling to begin with the likes of things like your affiliation fees and your insurance. Despite us not being able to play, you still have to maintain and pay those respective outgoings. This obviously, with us being predominantly supported by the members and the membership fees, meant that our members had to pay fees despite not playing to support the club. So the financial ramifications of lockdown were felt tremendously. We have our own clubhouse, which has had to self-support. It's been closed throughout lockdown, but we obviously still have to maintain that and pay certain utility bills and stuff. So we've had to refocus financially where the funds are being spent. So that was probably one of our biggest challenges that we faced away from the hockey scene, was maintaining financial funds throughout the lockdown.
And have there been any sort of really sort of serious red flags where you just thought we have to see an uplift in sort of whether we can go back, or we have to see an uplift at a change in something, otherwise like this does not look good?
Yeah, so we've had to restrict the playing time when we first initially come back onto the pitch due to the amount of funds that we have left. So you'll continue to see that there are certain teams within the club that aren't continuing to play league hockey because their leagues have been void and cancelled for the season. So their availability to play and pitch time has been reduced once we return. But we are looking at other ways and means of getting in funds, because we've lost such a social revenue. So with our clubhouse being closed, we'd probably look to take in about a tenth of our income probably comes from social events. So what we're trying to do is look at different ways that we could do that without having functions and dues and end of season dinners and stuff like that. We're trying to look at different ways of creating revenue away from the clubhouse.
And thanks, Kerry. And then Scott, you talked a bit before about sort of maintaining a connection between people and sort of things that the club has done. Have you seen the focus of that had to change? Because obviously hockey was one of the outdoor sports that had a return to play in sort of July time, didn't it? So there was a window between July and sort of November where there was league hockey that was being able to get played. Then we locked down, then we came back with, you know, the hope that we might be able to get some stuff in before Christmas. And then obviously it was locked down again after Christmas. Have you sort of noticed any kind of change in focus about, you know, members' attitude towards being part of a club and still being considered to be a member, and that the club has find itself doing in terms of reaching out and making people feel connected?
It's probably been more positive than anything else. Obviously, the main thing that came out of it was the frustration of, you know, we're coming out of lockdown, we're ready to get back going again, we're starting to play again. There's a little bit of socialising, albeit very different because we're not allowed to go to our own clubhouse or other opposition's clubhouses. There's no match tees or anything like that. There's only, as everyone else has found, there's so many Zoom quizzes and online things that you can do before you start losing interest in all of them, to be honest. Yeah. So they've actually been approaching saying, you know, my family have done this thing or my friends have done this thing, and there's so many new fresh ideas that we've been able to incorporate. One straight off the bat was a wine tasting night that we are looking to do in the next couple of weeks, where wines and cheeses are sent from a vineyard down in Surrey to members. Everyone can join in. It's informative, it's different, it's social, but it also raises some needs for the club as well. So just things like that are so far afield from where the initial what can we do to bring everyone together, or let's do a PowerPoint quiz or just sit online and have a chat. It's been really encouraging that everyone has sort of got on board to do their part, however big or small it may be, to bring everyone together and keep everyone interested and motivated, ready for the season coming up, which fingers crossed will be restarting in a couple of weeks.
Thanks. And then in terms of sort of looking to that future bit, so one question about sort of any worries or concerns that, you know, either or both of you might have on behalf of the club, and then one bit about sort of looking forward. The first one is there anything about, you know, that this next few months or whatever that you're looking at and that you are full of intrepidation, or that which frightens you about, you know, the future health of the club and or its members?
I think our main focus at the moment would be to ensure that our members are coming into a safe and enjoyable environment. Obviously, they've gone through a lot over the lockdowns that we've had previously. Physically, mentally, will they be prepared? We don't want to put them at any risk. So there's all that kind of thing to take into account as we move forward. There are lots. Well, 2 of our teams have still got leagues to finish for the season, so focus will be for them to get through that and hopefully both achieve promotion. But at the same time, we need to ensure that everybody's safe and working within guidelines, and also the guidelines provided by our governing body.
And I think in the 2 roles that you guys have for the club, do you feel like you shoulder quite a lot of responsibility with that? And the reason I ask is because if there are other clubs that listen to this, there are going to be those individuals and those people in volunteer roles in their respective clubs that probably are feeling that responsibility. So have you Scott, and then going back to Kerry, do you feel that?
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure. So you know, you've got 600, 700 members who are all keen to get back and play and get away from their house, get away from, they want to play hockey, but at the same time it's got to be managed in the right way. So you feel a tremendous amount of pressure in terms of the members and their willingness to get back on the pitch, but also financially it can be an incredible burden. Trying to monitor and maintain a good, healthy state of affairs whilst trying to do what the members predominantly want to get back on the pitch. Obviously, going back to a safe environment, you're always going to have additional costs to ensure that. So yeah, the pressure from the last year has been immense for all of the committee members. We've worked incredibly hard throughout lockdowns and met regularly, probably more regularly via Zoom and Microsoft Teams than we would normally have done. And I think quite a lot of people within clubs that just members would not see that aspect. So they'd expect us to be quieter and not probably doing so much. But actually, I think Scott would back me up here. You spend a lot more time trying to organise stuff and a lot more admin than we would normally have.
Scott, have you felt it, Scott? Have you felt the pressure?
Yeah, definitely. It's because it's everything you're trying to organise has to be done in a different way as well. Like normally it's just pick up the phone, get something organised, it's done. But now obviously when you're contacting other companies, whether it be for pitch hire, umpires, coaching, even trying to organise some hockey balls and bibs, you're relying on people having to come back to you via email, which takes a lot longer. Other companies, people are on furlough, they're still away. Other people are also feeling their own personal pinch from COVID, whether how work is for them, whether it's absolutely manic picking up things or trying desperately to stay afloat and stay alive. Their focus isn't where it normally would be when things are running as norm. So certainly it's fallen to a few individuals more than it should do. But it's when things are struggling, it's everyone's jumping in together and go, right, okay, let's really hammer out in an hour and 2 hours. Let's support each other, get a plan, let's go. And it's been brilliant for that. How people react has bin phenomenal in such a positive way.
That's good. And then just give us a bit of an insight then. Like, so outdoor sports can restart from next week. England hockey is one of the ones that had it sort of stages 1 to 5 that were released sort of back in the last year as we sort of came out of lockdown 1. Give us a bit of a walkthrough about what you think that's going to look like for the actual, what are the steps going to be from people leaving their house for the first time to go to a training session? to getting back in the car at the end of the training session, and just give us a bit of an insight about what steps the club's put in place to keep people sort of safe. I don't know if you want to go first, Kerry.
Yeah, so initially when we returned after the first lockdown, we were given step 1 to 5. We've been told to plan towards step 4, which is obviously quite significantly down the ladder in terms of what we are allowed to do. So from a person leaving their house to go to training next week, from week commencing the 29th, they will be travelling on their own. As far as we're aware, we are awaiting further guidance for that. So they'll travel on their own, they'll arrive at the pitch, they'll await instruction from a coach that will be present at a training session. Once they are notified, they are allowed to return to the pitch. On the pitch, so they will not be allowed to share bibs. For the team I coach, they would have their own set of bibs, so everybody takes their own bibs home. They would not be allowed to touch any equipment other than their own stick, which, if you think about a hockey game and the ball goes off, it's automatically just to pick up the ball and place it down where you want to take it. Anything in terms of first aid has to be managed, so there'll be additional kit that's given to each squad in terms of gloves, masks, spray. You'll see in quite a few games that the goals will be washed down and wiped to ensure there's no transfer of anything untoward. During training, when they're in groups, they will be asked to keep distance as per the guidelines by the government. So they're only allowed to be within 2 meters of each other when playing the actual physical game of hockey. And then when they finish, unlike before when you'd find groups would chat and discuss, they're asked to leave as quickly and as orderly as possible and then return home. So it is somewhat different to the normal hockey, but they're all given guidelines to follow. We recently sent out an email to reiterate that towards all the captains, so they're given a briefing of everything that they're meant to do. They also have to fill out an attendance form, so we keep a record of everybody that's attended any session. Doesn't matter where it is, how many people it is, what it's for. They have to note it down, and then that's then sent into our governing body who holds the records. Should any of them's members then test positive, the information is sent off to England Hockey, and everybody that will have been within their vicinity at a training session will be notified. So they're the kind of things that the governing body have put in place that we have to implement. So an actual training session involves quite a lot of admin and a lot of resource behind the scenes.
That's really helpful, thank you. And then, Scott, one of the other roles that I don't think that you shared at the beginning was you're also a player, aren't you? So
I am.
So this will be like the last couple of questions to you both, but to you, Scott. So Kerry's given us sort of a bit of a step-by-step about what the club's put in place. What from a player's point of view, what are the players thinking? What are you thinking about the opportunity to get back on the pitch and play? And have you got fears, hopes, things that you're excited about, things that you're worried about?
Me personally, I'm just glad to be back on and playing the sport that I have done for the last 20 odd years. It's going to be great to see everybody again in person. I know there are players who do carry some worries and concerns, which they're perfectly within their rights to think so, and it's up to them and to us to manage that accordingly. I think the most difficult bit is the overexcitement of players, because the norm would be to a game or a training session and meet and greet everyone. So there's a lot of handshakes, fist bumps, etc. But that's just going to have to be managed by the coaching staff and the officials as well, to make sure that it's not being silly. It's still touching elbows at an absolute maximum, really. In that sense, it's just going to be an adjustment and trying to make sure we balance that want to get back to play, but also stay within the relevant guidelines that the club and indeed England Hockey and the government have put in place for us to keep us all safe. Obviously, the last thing we want to do is go hell together and go back to being perfectly normal again, and then end up getting pulled up and going, right, well, you can't do this. Now we're going to end up pulling hockey, go back to another lockdown, and then we're back to square one again. I think more than anything, that will knock everybody's confidence and frustration levels will go through the roof. Worst case scenario, some people think, you know what, I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to take up the only thing I can really do, which is running or cycling, which would be a real loss for the sport. But I'm confident it won't come to that bit. I think everyone is sensible enough to come back following the guidelines to make sure that we are safe and we can get back playing to the point where we don't end up having to stop again, so that we can continue. Obviously, with Summer League on the horizon, which is sounding like it's going to be jam-packed already. There's a lot of interest from the whole club. I think across the whole club, I think it's about 96% are really keen to get back playing. And then before you know it, it'll be pre-season and the new 2021-22 season, which again has got some big prospects, big plans both on and off the pitch.
And you just start to touch on it there, and just if I squeeze another question in about, obviously there are some sports that, you know, certainly the indoor ones, that haven't done anything for 12 months. So, but in terms of the players, both within KL and in sort of neighbouring clubs that, you know, that you're aware of through your contacts, do you get a sense that people have kind of gone, I'm not going to go back, I've found other things to do with my time? Or is that 96% of the members of KL, do you think that's representative of sort of the sport in the surrounding area? To either of you?
I think that's the majority of people, whether it be indoor, outdoor sport, whatever it may be, have just wanted to get back into playing it. Obviously, indoor have got a few more restrictions because of the environment they're in. They have found other things to keep them occupied. I think some are going to try and, I know there's two people I know, one's really got keen into his cycling, but he was also a very decorated badminton player. Obviously, he's not been able to play at all with the nature of the sport, but because they can be done at different times of the year, cycling can be a lot nicer in the summer than it is in the winter with the wind and cold. They're going to try and make the balancing act and then go from there. But hopefully no sports, however big or sport or small, I should say, is affected. It's a shame for anyone to step away from a sport into something new. It's always a benefit for the sport they're stepping into, but it could equally be a big loss for the sport and indeed clubs and communities if it's a local one.
Yeah, Kerry, are you seeing that from the contacts? I know that you sort of sit on a number of committees and stuff, don't you? Yeah,
I think I think probably people in lockdown have missed sport more than they thought. So, you know, like Scott said, we did a poll online to see how many members wanted to play in Summer League, and that's generally when players would take a break. And you'd probably only see around 70 to 75% of members wanting to play. However, we had a poll and it was 96% of our members wanted to continue and play Summer League. And I think you'll find that the people that have gone out and done the cycling, the running, yes, it's great to do something physical to help with your mental well-being and your social well-being throughout lockdown. I think that's only going to aid the other sports and make us better prepared to return. So I think whilst people have looked at other things to do and other things to try and keep themselves occupied, I think it's probably going to see many more people return. Yes, you will lose the odd player, but I think we probably have attracted more players through lockdown that are interested in coming to training, trying new things out. Well, fingers crossed.
And I promise my last question before I give you your time back with much gratitude is, so you've heard the phrase, you emerge from lockdown as a chunk, a hunk or a drunk. You're both, when we went into lockdown, all three of them, I know you both to be committed and high performing players. So do you emerge from lockdown 3 as chunks, hunks or drunks?
I think
in front of 3 of those words and you might be about right.
I'm going to say a hunk.
Have you been? Have you? Has the opportunity to train one that's motivated you? Has it been?
It's probably the only thing that's kept me sane with so much going on in terms of everything else. There's not been a day when I haven't done something, and probably before lockdown, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have as much spare time with coaching. I struggled to fit in my own, so I've probably weathered it better than most, probably.
Thanks, Kay. What about you, Scott? Where would you see yourself?
Definitely not a hunk at the minute. Certainly taking the time to really recover and put my focus into a few other bits and pieces. But certainly with the acquisition of quite a large husky at the end of January, the fitness has started ramping up again. There's a lot of long walks, a lot of running with him as well. So I'm determined to get myself into some sort of hunk shape so that my kit doesn't look too embarrassing on me. And try and cut down on the drunken chunk as much as I possibly can over the next couple of months.
Thank you for sharing and being so honest, both of you. And thank you for your time. I appreciate that greatly.